The FIA is at war with the drivers once again, Ferrari is bringing a new FLEXI front wing, and Daniel's F1 career is coming to an end. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Daniel Ricciardo has played down talk the Singapore Grand Prix will be his last Formula One race, but says he has been around too long to completely rule it out. Red Bull and RB's senior management are set to make a decision after this weekend's race in Singapore about their 2025 driver lineup. And with it looking almost certain that reserve driver Liam Lawson will get the nod to step up to RB as Yuki Tsunoda's teammate, there has emerged a scenario where the squad elects to make the switch immediately rather than wait until the start of next season. That would bring the curtain down on Ricciardo's F1 career, after a season where he has enjoyed some good results but equally endured some frustrations. Ricciardo said he was unaware of there being moves for RB to switch drivers in time for the United States Grand Prix, but equally drew short of completely ruling it out. Speaking about the swirling speculation on his future, the Australian said, "My first expectation is about next year, so that's where I'm at the moment. Obviously, I can't give too many details, but in terms of contract, yeah, our dates pretty much come into this window now. So basically, I do expect a yes or a no for 25. Then yeah, I'm aware of some talk and speculation about the rest of the season, but that being replaced post-Singapore, for me at the moment, I'm unaware of. So the decision I expect is for next year, but obviously crazy things have happened in this sport, so I'm also not going to stand here too boastful and confident that, oh yeah, like, I believe I will be, but let's see." The RB decision after this weekend revolves around elements in Lawson's contract needing to be triggered to ensure he does not become a free agent. Asked directly if there was anything in his own contract that meant Singapore would be his last race, Ricciardo said, "I don't think so, but I also don't want to stand here and be the lawyer. Look, I would say no, but also, we know how this sport works. You know, people have not seen through a season before, so it's nothing new in some ways. So I don't want to also be like, oh, 100% I'll bet all my house on it. I've been around too long." Potentially losing his drive to Lawson would almost certainly mean that Ricciardo will be out of F1 next season, with no other realistic options on the grid. And while that could open up opportunities to compete in other categories, he has made clear that a switch to race something else is not necessarily his preferred option. Asked about other series, Ricciardo said, "IndyCar still scares me. Look, I've thought about it because I also thought about it a couple years ago when I knew that I wasn't going to start the 23 season. But I know I'm still a competitor. I know I still have a lot of fire in me, but maybe that itch is scratched doing something else. I don't know. We'll see. It's hard, like even talking about, just being in the sport and fighting for maybe a 10th place every now and then. It's maybe the same with doing another series. And no disrespect to other series, I'm a fan of NASCAR and a lot of other forms of motorsport, but because I've been there and experienced the highest of highs, will I get true fulfillment doing something else, and no guarantee I'll be awesome doing something else? Is that going to actually scratch the itch and give me what I want? I don't know. I'd probably say more no than yes, but these are things I'll think about if I'm not in this position." Lewis Hamilton has said there is a racial element to the choice of words used by FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem in his bid to clamp down swearing. In an exclusive interview with Autosport, Ben Sulayem had explained how the FIA had asked Formula One management to reduce the amount of foul language that is broadcast. Ben Sulayem said, "We have to differentiate between our sport, motorsport, and rap music. We're not rappers, you know. They say the F word how many times per minute? We are not on that. That's them and we are us." Ahead of this weekend's Singapore Grand Prix, Hamilton was asked by Autosport for his opinion on Ben Sulayem's comment with regard to rappers, and indeed whether a crackdown on swearing was needed. On the former point, Hamilton questioned the choice of language being used. He said, "I don't like how he expressed it. Saying that rappers is very stereotypical, and if you think about it, most rappers are black, and that really kind of points it towards when it says, 'We are not like them.' So I think those are the wrong choice of words. There is a racial element there." However, the 39-year-old did agree with the idea of asking the drivers to reduce their use of expletives and suggested fines could work. "When I was 22, I did not think of it as much, and it was more about your emotions just firing and saying whatever comes to mind and forgetting however many people are listening and kids listening and all those kinds of things," he explained. So I agree in that sense. You know, you listen to some of the other drivers and they have not got it yet, so at some stage they probably will. I am sure if you put penalties for it, people will stop it, and maybe I don't know whether that's needed, but I definitely think there is a bit too much of it, swearing. Meanwhile, Hamilton says there needs to be balance between punishment and freedom of expression. He said, "It's good to have some emotion, we are not robots. For me, the way I control it, there is over 2,000 people working towards me having this position and being where I am. Obviously, I've got a lot of followers of all ages, but it's not about me. And even though I'm having this experience on track, what I do and say affects all those people who are sacrificing time with their families and giving everything for me to have this privileged position and opportunity. I think it is just understanding that and putting the aggression somewhere else. That's what I try and do." Hamilton was speaking after Max Verstappen had earlier sworn in a live TV press conference. Meanwhile, Kevin Magnussen had joked that now he has returned from his one-race ban, he was free to fuck someone up, while Carlos Sainz said both fuck and psych in his press briefings. Red Bull Formula One team boss Christian Horner recently likened correlation issues between his team's wind tunnel, CFD data, and real RB20 car to having 3 watches that each tell different times. Key to making progress on track was finding out which device was the most accurate, and then trusting that to help deliver gains. In real-life terms, Red Bull's conclusion was that its wind tunnel data had been out from what was needed, which had opened up the wrong direction taken with its Imola floor. But while the team may not yet be in a position to return to the dominant form it started the 2024 campaign with, there are at least signs of progress being made in getting its data all lined up. And with the cocktail of different floor parts it brought for its Baku specification having shown some encouraging pace in Sergio Perez's hands, there is a feeling that the squad can start to make the push forward. It needs to lock horns on more equal terms with McLaren and Ferrari. Reflecting on where things were at with the team now ahead of the Singapore GP, Horner told Autosport, "The watches are starting to synchronize a bit better, which does tend to happen when things start to behave themselves. The guys and girls here at Red Bull are doing an incredible job. They're working incredible hours, and nobody's giving up on anything, particularly in the Constructors' Championship. We were unlucky not to come out of Baku with more than it gave us, but there's still a lot of racing to do. We're acutely aware of the performance of our rivals and everybody's pushing." While Max Verstappen had a more difficult time in Azerbaijan than his teammate, this was put down to a wrong setup direction that was taken into qualifying, and then could not be rolled back on because of Parc Fermé restrictions. But it is Perez's pace that has left Horner feeling that there is potential for a step back to the front for Red Bull after a pretty challenging period. We'll take a bit of confidence out of Checo's performance in Azerbaijan because he followed within 1.5 seconds for 98% of the race, of the first 3, he said. There's obviously lessons out of it. There's some changes that we made on Max's car following P3 that I think, with complete hindsight, if we could go back and change them, we would have done. But going to Singapore, we are encouraged by what we saw in Azerbaijan from Checo's performance, and what we're starting to see correlate between track and some of our thoughts. While the focus of Red Bull's recent performance struggle revolved around balance issues from the Imola floor, Horner does not think it is the only team going through such difficulties. With all squads chasing ever-diminishing returns and adding car performance, plus walking a tightrope when it comes to extra downforce not triggering bouncing, Horner sees what his team has faced as similar to what others have endured. All teams have had issues at various points of time, he said. I think as these regulations really now are into very, very diminishing returns, you're pushing the envelope very hard. All teams, and you've seen it with Ferrari and Mercedes in particular, have had parts going on and off the cars. I think all teams are hitting that ceiling. A good thing for the fan is that you've got close, competitive racing. For us, we've had some issues with the car over the last few races, but I think we really have started to understand and get on top of it now. One other bit of good news for Red Bull from last weekend's Baku race is that the major components from Perez's damaged car were not written off in the accident. Thankfully, the main structural parts of the car appear to have remained reasonably intact, explained Horner. And while there is no concern about Perez needing to go back to an older specification of car for this weekend, the accident has put more stress on Red Bull's spare part situation at this critical stage of the season, which means there could be consequences if there are repeat incidents. Horner added, I don't think it'll impact on car spec, but it certainly impacts on our spares quantities. In a cost cap dominated formula now, you cannot afford to carry copious amounts of parts. Lando Norris says he is very happy and proud of McLaren's apparent mini DRS rear wing flexing, as focus on the Formula One team's design intensifies following its Baku victory. After footage showed the top element of the MCL38's rear wing rotating back at speed on the Ling Straits in Azerbaijan, and appeared to be designed in such a way that this change in attitude opened up the slot gap and therefore reduced rear wing drag to offer a top speed boost. It has been dubbed a mini DRS. The FIA is now reviewing if any additional action on FLEXI wings is required, as McLaren's rear wing design has passed the mandatory deflection tests taken when the car is not running and so fully conforms to the current regulations. This all follows a debate on flexing front wings that followed the Italian Grand Prix, after which the FIA said it was satisfied all 2024 designs are currently legal. When asked about the storm over McLaren's rear wing since Baku, Norris insisted he was very happy with his car's design and said McLaren's technical team have been doing a very good job in regards to innovations he suggested other squads also deployed. Everything's been tested, everything's legal, he added. We're doing what we can, that's what Formula One is for, exploring everything within the rules. We've cleared all the tests and everything, and FIA are happy. So now I'm proud. I'm happy with what the team are doing. They're pushing the limits, and that's what you've got to do if you want to fight at the top and fight against people who are also known for doing such things and exploring every area possible. Now I'm more proud of the team for pushing every single area that we can. We've not been in situations where we could do that in the past, but now we're in that position, so I'm very happy. It's actually a cool thing to see, I think, in my opinion. There's so many rules, there's so many things in place, but teams, including us, are finding ways to just explore and look at different things that other people have not thought of. As much as you might see us doing it, there's plenty of other teams doing it that you just don't see on TV. Maybe you've not led a race and you don't see on certain cameras and stuff, but it's not just us. It's a big game, it's a big race out there, but for my side of the heart, I'm very happy with what McLaren have done. Norris's teammate Oscar Piastri said the mini DRS was certainly not the magic ticket or magic bullet for why we're competitive, and claimed to have been unaware McLaren's rear wing even acted in such a way until the Baku race. There, Piastri's end-of-straight top speed was a key reason why Charles Leclerc was unable to repass eventual winner Piastri for the lead of a race Leclerc had led early on, although at the time, the Ferrari driver put this down to his package having more downforce to be quicker in corners. To be honest, the first time I knew it did, that was the same time as everyone else, last week, Piastri told the pre-event press conference in Singapore. And it's not gray area. It gets tested every week, it's legal. They've got a lot of different tests for the rear wings now. I honestly didn't even know that it did that until 3 days ago. Obviously, in the sport, you find every bit of performance you can without breaking the rules. And I feel like that's what we're doing, and that's what you need to do to become a championship-winning car and championship-winning team. Carlos Sainz has revealed how he spent an awkward 20 minutes in the medical center with Sergio Perez, moments after their penultimate lap crash in Formula One's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The pair were dueling for a place on the podium in Baku before their coming together after Turn 2 ended with both drivers in the wall. Sainz had been attempting to pass Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc, who was struggling on his rear tires, while Perez was aiming for a strong race, having been on a run of poor form in his Red Bull. The stewards ultimately deemed it was a racing incident, and Sainz set the scene in the medical center as the duo underwent examination. We were awkwardly sat next to each other for 20 minutes in the medical center, both with a heart rate monitor and controlling our vitals, said Sainz. We were looking at each other and saying, "Mate, what the fuck happened there?" And we were like, "I don't know, but I promise I didn't do anything bad to you, Checo. I didn't close you off. I didn't do anything." We were having this dialogue and trying to analyze what happened, and suddenly, after these 20 minutes, we were like, this sport is so shit sometimes. How can we be here and missing out on the podium? We had the podium. Charles was dying on his hard tires out there. We were probably both going to have a go at him, and we were both sitting there like, how on earth did we manage to not finish in the podium? It was a podium coming, and in the end we kind of joked about it, so no hard feelings with each other. Perez echoed the sentiment of the Spaniard, as the two drivers rued the collision that cost them both an impressive haul of points. Once we took our helmets off, we realized that we both screwed it up. That finishing a race like that was really disappointing, Perez said. We were in the medical center, and they were checking us out. We were both fine, and we both wanted to leave as soon as possible because we were both super sad with the outcome. It is behind us, and I really hope we can both have a really strong end to the season. I think it was just wrong moves at the wrong time, and I think in the end it is just irrelevant at the moment. Who is to blame? We both ended up with 0 points, damaging our teams a lot, and it was something we were having a chat, and we were thinking the amount of damage for us, with especially Charles struggling so much, that in the end we should have been on the podium, but we were not. But it is irrelevant now, let's turn the page. A shot from Perez's onboard camera showed the Mexican approaching Sainz, having climbed out of his stricken Red Bull and seemingly pushing the Ferrari man's helmet. Perez was widely criticized on social media as the clip began to circulate, but said he had no recollection of the incident. I was chatting to Carlos as he was looking down and I was talking to him. I didn't push his head, explained Perez. It looks worse on the video than it is. Obviously, Carlos is one of my best mates in the drivers group, so the last person I would like to have come together with is Carlos. We have turned the page and hopefully both of us can have a tremendous race. Social media can sometimes be very toxic in that regard, so it is best to stay away because most of the time people don't know exactly the truth. And the truth is, we were both extremely disappointed. There are things posted like I did hit his head or any of the other comments I've seen. I have nothing to say about it. Carlos knows exactly, and we actually walked together after it to the paddock, and we were both just super disappointed with ourselves after such a race that we finished our weekends like that. That's it for today's video. I'll see you in the next one.